Hello everyone and welcome to episode 30 of season 6 of the Fat Doctor podcast. 13 is unlucky for some but not for me, and I'm really looking forward to this episode because it's something that I come across a lot and something that you've probably come across a lot, and in the past I've really struggled to know how to respond to this question or to this topic, but I don't know. I'd say I have some ideas now, and I'm going to share those with you. Today we're going to talk about people who say, but hang on a second, I lost weight and my health improved. So how can you say that losing weight doesn't improve your health? Like, that's bullshit, Asha. Like, you're clearly lying because it happened to me. And I want to say in this moment, like, that is not a lie. It did happen to you. You're not lying. You're not lying to yourself. You're not lying to other people. No one is suggesting that. That is real lived experience. You lost weight and your health improved. And still, I maintain that weight loss does not improve your health. So today we're going to talk about how to reconcile these two things, these two truths together. Because two things can be true at the same time. The first thing I want to remind everybody is just because one thing follows another thing doesn't mean the first cause the second, right? I can name several things that happened to me in the last few days where I did one thing and then another thing, and the two were completely unrelated, and that can apply here too, obviously. We call this a post-hoc fallacy, a logical fallacy where, we just assume just because one thing happened after another, then the first one caused the second. That's not necessarily the truth. But hey, it is what we've been led to believe. It is what society has been telling us. It's what we've been conditioned to believe since we were infants, that weight loss will benefit your health. The weight loss industry has spent a small fortune in PR and marketing and branding to ensure that we all believe this. And so when you believe something, and you are far more likely to pay attention to the evidence that suggests that it's true, right? Like, our brains are constantly searching for evidence to support our own beliefs, the stories we tell ourselves, the narratives we follow. If you think you're an unlucky person, right, that's just the story you've been told. Maybe it's something you grew up believing. And you just think, I'm an unlucky person. Every time something doesn't go your way or your luck seems to be, to run out, something goes bad, you're like, see, I'm an unlucky person. Your brain tends to ignore all the evidence to the contrary. So every time something does go well, every time you're fortunate, you're blessed, hashtag, your brain ignores it or finds a way to sort of acknowledge but kind of dismiss it. You're looking for proof that what you believe to be true is true. You're looking for that evidence. So if you grow up believing that if I lose weight, my health will improve, then your brain reminds you or confirms that and reinforces that belief every time there's evidence to support that. More often than not, the person's like, I lost weight and my joint pain improved. And I'm like, cool, how's your joint pain now? Oh, that's terrible because I gained weight. And that's the story. That's the narrative. It all fits perfectly, except it's not true. Objectively speaking, there is a lot of evidence that weight loss doesn't improve joint pain, or if it does, it improves it so very marginally that it's not clinically meaningful. Like, we've got studies, big studies, Now, studies look at populations, they look at averages. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen for anyone. For there to be, only an average improvement of, say, like 1 point or 2.5%, as in one study, that means that some people would have had more of an improvement and some people would have had less than an improvement, right? Like, that's the law of averages. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying that there's evidence that no one ever gets relief from joint pain at the same time as losing weight. I'm just saying that there isn't enough evidence to support the idea that weight loss causes improvement in joint pain. Like, there's just no evidence. There's no evidence that it improves underlying pathology. There's no evidence that it causes a lasting effect. There's no evidence that it's clinically meaningful. Like, that's the raw data, right? The hard facts that is really difficult to believe when your experience is, I lost weight and my joints improved. My pain went away. My blood pressure went down. Like, you name it. So people often go like, why? Why do you think that happened then? Go on, explain it to me. And I'm like, cool, all right. Let's sit down and get into it, shall we? Let's explain or give some answer that I can't prove that this is the reason. I don't have X-ray vision, and I'm not psychic, and I'm not able to, I have the second sight. I'm not able to tell you exactly what happened to you as an individual, but I can tell you that even if your subjective experience disproves the evidence, that there are many reasons why that might be the case. Traditionally, the response is, oh, it wasn't the weight loss, it was the lifestyle changes that you made to lose weight that caused the improvement. That's what people say. Oh, it was the lifestyle changes. And when they say lifestyle changes, they mean you changed your diet and you exercised more, and it was the exercise that improved the joint pain. And I dislike this answer almost as much as I dislike the idea that weight loss improved your joint pain. I put them on a par with each other. It's the standard thing I hear from a lot of kind of supposed health at every size kind of experts. It's a lot of the books that I've read are like, yeah, we've got to stop blaming weight, but instead we should be exercising and changing diet, etc. And that's because a lot of the health at every size people are dietitians, exercise experts. Like, that's their job. So of course that's where their focus lies. But I don't buy into this shit at all. I'm sorry. I really don't. I don't think it was just the change in diet. I don't think it was just that you exercise more. And the reason is because there's studies that support this, that it isn't just exercise either. It's not just one thing. It's never just one thing. I will say, though, that there is something to be said about when you set your intentions. When you say, I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to, and when I do this thing, this is going to get better. Oftentimes, there are so many little things that change about our behavior, about the choices that we make. We bring a different energy, a different flavor to our lives during that period of time. And I suspect that does have an impact. I really do. So the implication that eating better or exercise is an essential part of healthcare, I reject that. I really do. I respectfully disagree. I'm not saying that you shouldn't exercise. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, be concerned about nutrition. I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying that this idea that eating well and exercising is a fundamentally important part of keeping and staying healthy, I think that is steeped in diet culture. I think that is just as bad as saying that losing weight is a fundamentally important part of staying healthy as well. I disagree with all of those things. I think the answer is far more complex and nuanced. I do think that people who are actively pursuing weight loss tend to make a concerted effort to be healthy, in quotation marks, and so they often choose to get better sleep, or to spend more time outdoors, or to eat meals regularly, to not starve themselves, to stay hydrated, to there's often so many little things that we do, and these intentional changes, they make you feel better. They do improve. Not because it's exercise and weight loss, it's because it's and diet, sorry, it's because these things reduce your stress, they help with your mental health, they reduce your cortisol levels, they help your nervous system regulate better. All of these things have a really positive impact on you in general, and certainly on any of the symptoms that you're experiencing. So yeah, I do think that these intentional changes that we make, or this different energy, this different flavor, the way that we behave when we are on a weight loss program of some kind, I think that definitely has an impact. But I don't think it's as simple and basic as, watch what you eat and make sure you exercise, as much as, health at every size experts would like us to believe. I don't think it's that simple. I also think that a lot of these changes actually shouldn't be driven by weight loss. I think if we're pursuing weight loss and we're like, oh, I'm going to sleep better, I'm going to drink better, and all these things, if we're doing that in the pursuit of weight loss doesn't last, and so we give up on these things when the weight loss plateaus, and that's the exact opposite of what we should be doing. If we're not linking any of these things to weight loss, then we won't be bothered when the weight loss plateaus. So if you're like, do you know what, I'm very conscious of the fact that I do not hydrate as often as I should, that I will often prioritize work or socializing or productivity over listening to my own thirst cues and drinking fluids. If you're the kind of person that lives on coffee because that's the only way you can stay awake, but coffee is a diuretic and will dehydrate you, I get that. I'm not, no judgment, but if you want to make a change, if you're like, you know what, I really need to get better at hydrating, that should just be because it's good to make sure that you stay hydrated and you listen to your thirst cues. Not because you're doing it to improve your health, not because you're doing it to lose weight, because if your health doesn't improve, if your joint pain doesn't get better, if you don't lose weight or you don't maintain the weight loss, then you'll give up on the hydration part because you're like, well, that didn't work. But if you're just hydrating because you just think, you know, that's just a good thing. Or more importantly, I deserve that. I deserve to be well hydrated because being dehydrated sucks. Like it's really, it's not pleasant. Like you have all sorts of symptoms from being dehydrated. Sometimes they're very chronic and low grade and you don't notice them, but it does. You shouldn't be in a permanent state of dehydration. You should be able to nourish your body with fluids on a regular basis. And that should just be because you deserve it, not for any other reason. Not because you're being healthy, not because you're trying to avoid getting sick, not because you're trying to treat a particular illness, not because you're trying to lose weight, just because you should, just because it's good for you. You deserve good sleep. You deserve to rest. You deserve, to spend some time outdoors. You deserve a safe space to be able to walk outdoors. You deserve to not have to be inundated with negative messaging. Like, you deserve all of these things. You do. You're worthy of them. Whoever you are, wherever you're at. For no reason whatsoever other than you just deserve them. So that's part of it. But moving on from that, I want to talk a little bit about the placebo effect. And we don't talk about this enough. The placebo effect is it's spectacular. It's so fascinating. I can spend days reading about it and reading all these articles and what they know and what they don't know, and I find this stuff really interesting because it's incredible how much power over our body our mind has. The placebo effect isn't all in your head. I think people just think, oh, it's all in your head. It's not in your head at all. A placebo effect involves real, measurable, biological changes. When someone believes that a treatment is working, whatever that treatment might be, their brain genuinely, and we have proof of this, releases actual chemicals, neurochemicals, endorphins, dopamine, opioids, cannabinoids. Like, we release natural painkillers from our brains because we believe that a treatment is working. That's the power. It's not the power of suggestion. It's not all in your mind. Like, your brain it's marvelous. Oh, the connection between your brain and your body is stinking amazing. I can't express it. I can't find the words to express how fascinating it is. So these real measurable biological changes reduce pain. They reduce inflammation. They reduce all sorts of symptoms. They are not imagined. They show up in blood results. They show up on brain scans. This is real stuff. And the key mechanism at work here, from what we understand, of course, we don't understand everything. I'm basing this on what the evidence says. And I certainly link a lot of these articles, the really good articles, because there are loads, but I've put a few in the back of my in my No Way book because I think it's really interesting for those who are interested. And not particularly, it's some of the only studies that don't mention weight loss. It's quite nice. The key mechanism here is expectation. When you expect to feel better, your brain acts on that expectation. Before, during, and after the treatment, your brain acts on that expectation. Isn't that amazing? So when you're looking at things like pain's like when we look at the placebo effect, a lot of the studies focus on pain. When you look at what we found, there's a particular part of the brain, the rostral anterior cingulate cortex, in case anyone's interested, the pontine nucleus, the cerebellum, parts of the brain that get lit up on brain scans. And they release several things. So the big one, the one that we spent a lot of time measuring, are endogenous opioids. You all know what an opioid is. Endogenous means we make them ourselves. So did you know that? Your body creates its own opioids. And this is when we expect to receive relief. And these endogenous opioids bind to opioid receptors and they reduce pain. In the same way that morphine or codeine or any other opioid that you can name out there binds to opioid receptors and reduces pain, so do the endogenous opioids that we create in our brain and that we release in response to the expectation that a treatment is working. And this is why they've done studies where they take naloxone or Narcan, which is an opioid blocker, and that can actually reverse the placebo effect. So we know that opioids are involved. There's not just opioids, there's also cannabinoids. Do you know about this? Do you know what a cannabinoid is? So we also release endogenous cannabinoids, which are chemicals that are similar in nature to cannabis. And they bind to specific receptors in our body that, are the cannabinoid receptors that also help with pain relief. And it's not just pain, actually, because cannabis, sorry, you don't need me to tell you what cannabis does, but all of the effects that we see with cannabis, the reduction in stress and, the nervous system regulation and blah, 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 we make our own endogenous cannabinoids, and that's also part of it. There's also dopamine. That's another neurochemical that is released during the placebo response. Dopamine is really important in the reward anticipation part of our brain. Anyone who has ADHD probably knows about dopamine. Parkinson's patients are a really fascinating group to look at here because Parkinson's is all about dopamine and the dopamine centers in the brain. And so Parkinson's patients have show measurable dopamine release with placebo. So they'll have drugs and they'll be doing tests and they'll be doing a study, and people who get the placebo drug will still release dopamine in their brains. And that will show an actual measurable improvement in their motor function. Parkinson's brains, unfortunately, are not making enough dopamine. That's the main problem. And so this is incredible. A placebo can improve Parkinsonian symptoms by getting the brain to release dopamine. That's how amazing the placebo is. And there are two things going on here when we talk about expectation. So expectation is like a top-down response. It's a cognitive process. Our brains assume something is going to help, and the brain begins acting on that belief, as I said, biochemically, biologically, measurably, before any effect can physiologically occur. So like our brain is acting before anything else happens, right? But there's also something about beyond expectation. There's also this kind of conditioning, which is more of a bottom-up response rather than a top-down. It's a bottom-up. Our body learns that, hey, this treatment worked last time. So it starts responding to the cues, the same cues that worked last time. So if it's a pill, it responds to the pill. It sees a pill, same colour, same shape, very familiar, and it goes, oh, this pill worked last time. This is going to work this time. So that's part of it. It could be the clinic that you're in. It could be the clinician that you're working with, or it could be the routine, the ritual of weight loss. Like whatever it is, if there's an active ingredient that sort of stimulates, that reminds the body, and the body goes, oh yeah, that's familiar. I know this. So it's conditioning. So even when there is no, there's a placebo, when it's just, there's nothing there, there's nothing actually happening, your body thinks it's happening, and that's enough. So there's expectation and there's classical conditioning. And then it gets even more interesting. There's something called the enhanced placebo. Now I have to say that the evidence is quite old. I haven't found any really recent studies on this. So we're working off, I don't want to say outdated information, but older information. But the enhanced placebo effect, again, really fascinating, is this observation that the strength of the placebo response is influenced by a number of things. Like, for example, the route of administration. Injections produce stronger response than pills. Interesting when you think about weight loss injections. So they tend to, that's apparently, it's because it's an injection. Your body's like, ooh, we better take this seriously. The elaborateness of the ritual involved, the more elaborate, the more steps you have to take, the more it feels like, yeah, the body's like, this is going to work. There's that expectation. If there's like a technology involved, if there's like a, not necessarily an app or a machine or something, that there's, this feels really real, it feels tangible, it feels concrete. Again, the brain will respond to that by increasing its expectation. And also the authority and the enthusiasm of the clinician, right? Or the person prescribing it, the person suggesting it. Like it really helps if they have an MD or if they're a doctor, if they have, in my case, an MBBS, which is an MD, peeps, just in case you were wondering. It's just different letters, same thing. But when a doctor says it, it's more powerful than when a nurse says it. It shouldn't be. I mean, that's bullshit, but that's just the way that it is. So it's authority, but also enthusiasm. Like, if someone's giving you the sales pitch, you are more likely to buy into it, right? That's why advertising exists in the first place. So yeah, the enhanced placebo makes it even more interesting. And then you've got the open label placebo, and I love this the best. Because here's the thing. Patients can experience significant symptom relief even when they are explicitly told that they are receiving a placebo. And there's a really great study that looks at IBS. And people know they've got the placebo. They know it's the placebo. There's no trickery involved. And yet the expectation still operates. Isn't that fascinating? Like, even if someone says to you, a placebo can help you, like that in and of itself is setting an expectation, right? It's an expectation that, the placebo will work. Like, placebos work. So even if you're getting the placebo, it's still going to work. And it's when we think about conditioning, like, it's automatic. Conditioning is automatic. We don't have any conscious say in this. A lot of the stuff that's going on is subconscious. So our bodies have learned that if we take a pill or we do a certain thing, then that will result in this thing. And so we're conditioned to respond to that. And we don't need to consciously believe it's going to happen for it to function. Like, our body can respond in spite of what our conscious mind, our like prefrontal cortex, the part of us that's like the thinking part of our brain, even if it says that's not going to work or it's a placebo, you're having a placebo, our body and the cerebellum and what were the other things? I had to write them down, like the pontine nucleus and the RACC, those things are working independent, right? They'll keep working. So you might be thinking, all right, that might work for pain and whatever. What's that got to do with anything? The placebo effect produces measurable changes, right? Not just shifts in perception, actual biological measurable changes. We have neuroimaging, PET scans, MRI scans, etc., that shows activation of particular parts of the brain. Because with the placebo effect, we've seen the way that the placebo effect can affect the immune system. How it can, how the placebo effect can have anti-inflammatory effects, how it can affect our cortisol levels, how it can affect our autonomic nervous system. I'm talking about the part of the nervous system that controls like your heart rate and your blood pressure and all of that stuff. It's amazing. And then I guess at some point in time, and this is what a lot of the literature on placebo effect allude to, is like, well, at what point in time, like, why do we make this distinction? Like, why are we trying to make a distinction between real and placebo if we're seeing that impact? What difference does it make whether you get the active ingredient or not? Like, it's almost like we're just being technical here. Like, who cares if your brain is genuinely releasing opioids and anti-inflammatory molecules, and your immune system is improving, and your nervous system, autonomic nervous system, is resetting. Like, who cares whether there's an active ingredient or not? It's real. It's real. It's not make-believe. It's real. And so then you can make the argument, well, hey, hang on a minute, Asha, if the process of losing weight, whatever that looks like to you, the diet, the counting the calories, that downloading the app, whatever it is that you do, maybe, or it's the injection that you're taking, or whatever it is, if the process in of itself is improving your health by reducing your pain and by reducing inflammation and by improving your, reducing cortisol and your hormones are becoming more balanced, all of this. If it's working, what difference does it make? It's almost as like, Asha, you've just proved your point. You just disproved your theory, or like you've just proved my point. It does work. Placebo or not, it's still working. You've just said it's real, so it's working. So why wouldn't I do it? And this is where it gets really important, because you said it was weight loss. You said I lost weight and then my symptoms improved. But if it was the placebo effect, it wasn't the actual weight loss. It was the expectation of the weight loss that improved your symptoms. And then beyond that, you have to understand that weight loss has potential benefits, but it also has side effects, right? And I think that's the key here. On the one hand, weight loss is essentially a perfect storm for a strong placebo response. It involves significant effort on your part. There's a lot of social reinforcement. There's a lot of clinician approval. There's cultural validation. There is a powerful expectation narrative. You have been conditioned to believe this is going to work since you were very young. So, of course, all of these factors are independently boosting that placebo response. It's a very real, a biological improvement that has happened as a result of a placebo response as opposed to the actual physical act of losing weight. And if that's the case, then weight loss is not the active ingredient, right? Something else is the active ingredient here. And so that's the benefit. Now let's talk about the risks. First of all, weight loss is unsustainable. So if the improvements in health are dependent upon the placebo, dependent upon the social reinforcement, the clinician approval, the cultural validation, if they're dependent upon all of this positive reinforcement, then they will disappear when the weight loss plateaus and eventually weight begins to be restored. And then your brain will interpret that as like, oh, see, when you lost weight, things were better. Now you're gaining weight, things are worse. You've just proved my point. You do need to lose weight in order to have to improve your joint pain or blood pressure, whatever it is that you're focusing on. But see how you got tricked there? Like that. Sure, that's one way of looking at it. But another way of looking at it is that the placebo effect is dependent on certain things happening, and if it's hinging on weight loss, then weight loss is unsustainable. So it's not going to work. And weight loss is harmful, folks. I've talked about this. We'll spend the last few episodes talking about this. Weight loss is harmful, right? Eating disorders, weight cycling, all the Minnesota starvation experiment. Think back to all the different ways that weight loss is harmful. It is not like, hey, why not try it? What's the worst that can happen? It is harmful. That weight loss injection that works for a period of time. Nobody knows how long because there's no studies that have looked into the long-term benefits or the long-term effects of GLP-1s. But that weight loss injection, sure. I mean, I'm not denying the experience you get when you go on it. Ozempic does help you to lose weight. Actually doesn't help you to lose that much weight. Wegovy helps you to lose a lot of weight. Ozempic, not so much, but whatever. You do you. Manjaro, a lot of weight, for sure. Not denying it. However, there are side effects. There are lots of side effects. And if you're doing it because you've been told that it's going to improve your health, there's no evidence to support that. None whatsoever. It just doesn't exist. There's not a single study out there that goes, take this drug and it's going to improve your health. No way. Even with, they claim, anti-inflammatory properties, this, that, and the other. That's bullshit. That's smoke and mirrors, folks. There's no actual evidence. Bring me the studies. We'll dissect them together. I'll show you why that study doesn't prove that it's going to that weight loss injections, Ozempic, whatever, is going to fix your rheumatoid arthritis or PCOS or whatever it is that you're being told it's going to fix. Those studies don't exist. But the harms do. I do know what the side effects are. There's no question about how these drugs harm you. There's absolutely no question about it. So please remember, when you're doing anything, any treatment whatsoever, you got to say, do the benefits outweigh the risks? In this case, the benefits of weight loss are slim to nil. And yes, there's a placebo effect. No one's questioning that. No one's doubting that. No one's doubting your lived experience. But that doesn't mean that it's worth it for the risks, right? If you're the kind of person that's just like, when I lost weight, my joint pain was better, and then I gained back weight, and now my joint pain is worse, so I'm going to keep losing. I mean, you know for yourself that it doesn't work long term, because it didn't. If it did, you wouldn't be worried about your joint pain anymore. I've never met somebody that went, I lost a ton of weight, my joint pain improved, and 5 years later, my joint pain is still fine. I've not met that person yet. I would love to meet them. I'm sure there are a few of them out there, but they're few and far between. For the vast majority of people, They lost weight, their joint pain improved. They gained weight, their joint pain got worse. Sometimes they lost weight, their joint pain got worse. Lots of times, actually, they lost weight, their joint pain got worse. The placebo effect didn't work. If it's not worked in the past, or if it hasn't lasted in the past, why on earth do you think it's going to be different this time? Like, who told you that this time was going to be different? Why do you believe them? Like, why do you believe that guy on Facebook that's convinced you that, oh, he's an expert in perimenopause and he'll teach you a way to lose weight and you'll be able to keep it off? Like, why do you believe that guy? Honestly, that guy's a dick. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't even have ovaries. What the fuck does he know? Why do you believe the doctor that is just so desperate to force Ozempic down your throat? Honestly, stop and ask them why are you so obsessed with Ozempic? When was the last time? Like, which conference have you been to? Which drug rep are you talking to? Like, why are you so keen to believe them? Like, they don't have the evidence. So if they don't have the evidence, why we're so keen? It's because of the narrative, right? It's because we've been told and we've been conditioned to believe it. And I don't know. I don't know about you, but weight loss is setting yourself up for failure. You know that down the road, it's gonna, like, the weight's gonna come back on, and that's the part that always feels bad. Like, to me, you know, like, I know that living as a fat person sucks. I do know this, but losing weight and then starting to regain weight for me is like worse than living as a fat person, in my experience. I don't know. You decide. And here's the thing, and this is the thing that really bugs me. In almost all cases, there are other options. You know, you're like, oh, I lost weight and I dropped my blood pressure. And I'm like, cool, you could also take a drug and drop your blood pressure. And you could drop your blood pressure significantly more. Like, oh, I lost weight and I dropped my cholesterol. Cool, you could take a statin and drop your cholesterol. Oh, and this is when it gets really interesting. You don't necessarily need to drop your cholesterol. Ooh. Rein it in. You're going to have to wait for the next one to talk about that. Ooh, you're in for such a shock with the next episode, but I don't want to give it away too soon. There are other options. There are always other options. Why choose weight loss when there are other options, with better evidence, gold standard treatments? You don't need to pick the one that isn't going to last and has lots of side effects and lots of worrying long-term impacts just because they're pushing it on you. You can just be like, no, can we try something else? Can we try something that we know works? Like, I'm getting in the habit now when they say, oh, you should take a GLP-1. I go, yeah, have you got any evidence that this works for my particular condition? And I have taken to Googling and trying to find if they're doing a study, because oftentimes they are. Like, Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly are spending a fortune on studies that will that look at certain medical conditions to see whether their drug helps them, right? So there's one for knee arthritis. And so I look at the study, I look at the end date for the study. It's usually like, 10 years from now or something like that. And I'm like, we'll talk again in 10 years. Once this study is finished, and we'll look at the results. And if this study really shows that taking this drug is going to improve this condition, then I'll take it. But I need at least one study, right? I need at least one piece of evidence before I'm going to take this drug that we don't even know is going to help me in the long term. So, yeah, that's what I do now. I'm like, where's the paper? Where's the study? No, I know it's only started last year. So once that's been published, we'll talk again. That tends to shut them up because they don't have a study. It doesn't exist. Anyway, that was my deep dive into the placebo effect. I don't know if that's helpful. I don't know if that's helping people who are like, well, why did weight loss work last time? I hope that's given you some food for thought. I hope that it's given you some words for those of people who are kind of like, saying, well, of course it works because it worked for me. That being said, I don't recommend getting into conversations with those people. We have to be in a particular place in order to accept evidence that is or information that is contrary to what we are desperately clinging on to. More often than not, those people are not in a place where they're ready to hear anything to the contrary. So I would strongly recommend not getting into a conversation. Don't get into a debate. Don't try and win them over with, studies about the placebo effect. They don't want to know. They're not interested. And if they don't want to know, they don't want to know. Hey, that's their prerogative, right? So don't waste your time. But if you're wondering and you want to find out more, we'll be talking about it in, I'm going to say chapter 6 of No Way. I think it's chapter 6. Pretty sure this is where it all fits in. Speaking of No Way, that's my book, by the way, for those of you who haven't been paying attention to me going on and on about it. I am, heading into the final week. I'm trying to think when this comes out. Yeah, I'm heading towards the final week of self-publishing, all going well. The book will be available to pre-order on the 22nd of April. How exciting is that? And so please buy my book. If you're interested, I'd really appreciate that. More information to follow, no doubt. But thanks for listening. As I said, next time we're going to be talking about whether or not we should be treating cholesterol and blood sugar and blood pressure. I'm bound to piss a few people off, but I'm going to come with the evidence. I'm coming with the receipts, and then you get to make a decision for yourself. So thank you very much for listening. Have a lovely week. Take care. Bye.